For some, Area 51 has been an obsession for over 50 years. Talk of secret government technologies, off-planet vehicles, back engineering ET technology, and so many more theories. Located in the remote desert, Area 51 is the common name of a highly classified United States Air Force facility located within Nevada. Former Area 51 employee and CIA specialist T.D. Barnes joins me to speak about his experience working on the A-12 stealth plane, his knowledge of the SR-71, what it was like spending time on the base, how he was scouted by the CIA, and rumors of the SR-72 being built. Join us as we get rebelliously curious. TD, thank you for joining me on Rebelliously Curious. So it's not every day that I get to, or most people get to speak with anybody who's worked at Area 51. So can you tell me a little bit about Area 51 and the special projects that you worked on? And what does that even mean? What is Area 51 special projects even consist of?
The Area 51 special projects, that was a team of specialists that the CIA picked. There was 30 of us, and we were a permanent party there. And you had two classes of people. You had the permanent people that worked there, went up on Monday morning, came on Friday night, year after year, project after project. And then you had the customers, which could be Lockheed or Navy. It could be anyone that we were doing a service for. In other words, we performed a service for the customers. It would be it radar, whatever it happened to be. And that's what the special project team did. We all had different specialties.
What was your specialty working on the base at that time?
I was basically radar, and I was an electronic guy, and Soviet radar, our radar. I'd been on the X-15 program, so I was a hypersonic flight support specialist, at fancy title. But I was used to flying, tracking fast planes, and that's what we were doing. We were developing the fastest plane that's ever been built, and we were developing it.
Right. And you worked on the A-12 and the SR-71. Can you tell me a little bit about what you were doing on those planes? And then we can talk a little bit later about the work that potentially we've heard some rumors that there will be an SR-72 coming out, and we can maybe touch on that. But can you tell me a little bit about the work that you did on those two planes?
Okay, I worked on the A-12. It was the CIA version. And this is something a lot of people don't realize. The SR-71 was never at Area 51.
Okay.
It was an Air Force plane. And it's funny, today we have people that claim to have flown the SR-71 for the CIA and that sort of thing. Well, the fact is no CIA person ever flew the SR-71. And no Air Force person ever flew the A-12. It's strictly CIA, just two different animals, two different locations. But anyway, we were doing the A-12, and we have a lot of fun with it because the A-12 actually flew faster and higher than the SR-71.
Oh, wow.
But because it remained top secret until 1991, the SR-71 set all kinds of speed records. You had all the records, but from day one, we were faster and higher flying.
Wow.
But what happened was when the A-12 was a one-seater, just a pilot, and the SR-71 was two-seater. And when they put the second person in there with all the life support systems that was required, they lost 5,000 feet of altitude. It made that much difference, just the added weight.
Wow. And it was made out of, so what was the A-12 made out of? Because I know that from what I read, the SR-71 was made out of titanium. So what was the previous plane made out of?
The A-12 was titanium. That was the first plane ever built to titanium. And also, I might add, it's our first stealth plane. The CIA was really big on stealth. And so it was the first stealth plane. It was made with titanium, and the challenges just was out of this world. Dealing with a metal we'd never dealt with before. We had to reinvent all the tools, drill bits to last about 2 or 3 turns. Everything had to be invented to deal with it. And kind of a funny story, we noticed that when the early ones, we were having problems with the welding on some of them, and they couldn't figure out what was happening. And they finally realized that those planes were built during the summer at Burbank, and they had washed them down with city water, and it had chlorine in it. And just the chemicals in that chlorine water had affected the welding. So it's that sensitive. We run into some of the weirdest problems that you can imagine. But then the A12, well, both of them, the SR-71 too, they got very hot. You know, the windshield gets 800 degrees.
Wow.
And so we had to invent the fuel that we used in them, the hydraulics, everything had to be invented for the planes.
Wow. And I heard maybe not the A12, or maybe it was too, but the SR-71 was actually made with a slide ruler, was measured with a slide ruler. And then when they put the information into the computer, it said that it wouldn't even be able to fly. Is that true?
That's true. We didn't have computers then. We used slide rulers.
Right. Right.
And like I say, we built the fastest plane that'll ever be built. They'll never build another manned plane as fast as the A12. They don't need to. At that time, we needed something to outrun the Russians' missiles. So we built a fast plane, but now we got sensors. We don't need that kind of technology, or no need to speed. And you run into all kind of problems when you start dealing with speed. That was our limitation. We could have gone faster except for the heat, but the plane got so hot. You know, and there are places you got around the intakes, you got up to 2,200 degrees, and we didn't have any metal that could withstand that, you know, over a long period of time. So temperature was our biggest enemy, was the building up the heat. Because you take a Mach 2.5 plane, the skin of it gets about 450 degrees under sustained flight. But the A12 going 2,200 mile an hour, Mach 3, it got up to those 1,100 to 2,000 degree temperature. It's that much difference in it, just that much speed increase.
And how fast did how fast did each plane go? What was the general speed of it?
Roughly 2,200 mile an hour, which is faster than a rocket.
For both?
Yeah. The A12 flew just a little bit faster because of the added weight to the SR-71, but not much because they used the same engines. And so basically the speed was almost the same.
And what was the cost around each of those planes to make individually? Yeah.
I don't recall. It's just a fraction of what it would be today. I'll give you an example, and this is one of the reasons that I've always said we needed Area 51. It was the U-2 plane. From the day we signed the contract to build it, the CIA, until the first flight was 8 months, and we were under budget. And you compare that to the F-22 built with the Air Force at Fort Worth or wherever. It was over 20 years old before it ever flew, and billions of dollars over budget. And that's because you had all your bureaucracy. Area 51, we didn't have all of that. You didn't have EPA, we got the job done. You had a problem, you fixed it right then, and no committee meetings, no paperwork. You just got the job done. So that's one thing I say, if you really want to get something done, you need an Area 51.
Interesting.
Get away from all the congressmen. Everybody's got their pet projects, but if you do it in secrecy, they don't know about it.
Right. Then, so compared to stealth technology now, and you might know this or not, how does it compare from the past into where we are now, and then maybe where we're going? Like, what is that advancement been? I would imagine it's been tremendous over those years since the early 50s. And then now,
we did a lot of, besides A12 and you know, we did the MiGs and that sort of thing, but the CIA was very much into stealth, and we were doing what we call proof of concept, or technology demonstrators. There'd be a prototype, but never intended to go operational. We built the technology demonstrators, and we designed for stealth. And we started out, you know, they would shine, we put them out on the pylon or the pole, we call it, look at it with all this radar, and it would shine like a barn. And we would they'd take it back to Lockheed or whoever was doing it would take it back and change this, change that, bring it, we'd look at it again. And we got it down to where a bird landed on the prototype, showed up more than the prototype. And we actually had to put a thumbtack or something in it for a reference part so that we could tell on the radar what we were looking at. It'd give a ping. And we got the prototype down where the rim of the pilot's glasses showed up more than the plane did. Now, we did that in the early days, so you can only imagine, and that was before computers. So you can only imagine what we got today.
Oh, yeah, I can't. I can guess we'll find out in the next little bit. They're always creating something. I want to go into the lifestyle and you working at Area 51. So what I read from your bio, which was a really great rundown of how you started, how you ended up getting to Area 51 and talking to people in the CIA. So let's start off by just even the credits. You have to have accreditation to be able to work there. So from what I read, there was 30 of you that you said before, and that all of you had a lot of similarities. And some of those similarities were having two children, having a cabin or a boat in the same location, and also being married. So why do you think they profiled you? And the academics, I would imagine, would have to be similar. But why do you think there was a profiling done to have people in the same group together work together? Is it because of camaraderie, or was there other reasons outside of that?
It was very fair to the CIA selection, was very critical. Like with your pilots, the Air Force would recommend its top pilots to the CIA to fly the planes. And only 1 out of 4 would actually qualify by the time the CIA got through. I mean, they were the cream of the crop. Our people, went up on Monday morning, came home Friday night. We could not tell our families where we worked or what we did. My wife didn't find out where I was working until 2009. CIA brought us back to headquarters and declassified it, and we could finally tell our wives. The families had no idea where we worked. And that's one of the things, a lot of people wondered, well, how could the wife and kids not want to know where you work? But that was part of the screening. Most of it had worked in classified projects before. They interviewed the families almost as much as the individuals. If wife talked too much, gambled too much, any of that kind of stuff, that got you disqualified immediately. Your family could get you disqualified. But they wanted guys that could work Monday through Friday and be compatible and work together and not have any internal problems and that sort of thing. So we all had something in common, and we would talk about our boats all week up there, what was working, plan for the weekends. The wives would take care of all the honeydew stuff. Because when Daddy comes home Friday night, Daddy's come home, and we'd head to the lake, and all of us worked together and we played together. We had our own little secret place out on the lake that we'd all meet with our boats. A lot of us had cabin cruisers, and we'd spend the weekend out there with our families. And part of that was security, because we were scared to death of the Russians trying to get to us through our families. Well, they knew we was out there. And they claimed there's 5 spies for every one of us. And that's another reason we didn't let our families know anything. But the families were not knowing where we worked. The wives didn't like to have to lie. Someone said, "Where's your husband working?" You'd have to. We used cover that worked out the atomic testing site, but they didn't like having to lie, and it made them nervous. So it got where the wives didn't associate outside of our group. So it bonded us. And to this day, over half a century later, the widows of the people we lost, even in the 60s, still come to our every reunion. Wow. We know each other's kids. We know each other's grandkids. They grew a family that has never drifted apart. We're on Facebook together. We're getting to the age we're not having reunions now, but we would have a reunion every 2 years. But the widows would come. Everyone would come. Once you were in the family, and this was CIA people, Air Force, and contractors, just the people that worked at Area 51.
Wow. Did you ever question or talk about this in a group about, what you were working on, and if it was, technology from maybe off planet or anything to that? Did you ever question, the projects that you worked on and why you were doing it, and talk about it as a group? I would imagine you might have talked about it with your wife, but did you talk about it with your fellow employees?
No, this is something that initially, when they had the U2 program and the A12, that was the only thing going on out there. Right. So everybody was just roaming around all they wanted to, going where they wanted to in the facility. It wasn't the base. We never called it a base. It was never military. It was a facility, even though we had planes. Anyway, they go anywhere they want to. But once we started working on other projects, the CIA started working on the Soviet MiGs. We got some Soviet planes in, Soviet radar and stuff like that. And so all of a sudden, the other guys, if you didn't have a need to know, you couldn't even come in our building. And as we grew into other projects, even within our 30 people, each of us might be working for a different customer. One might be Lockheed, one might be even for a university that had a grant. And we knew basically what each other was doing, but you didn't, and we gave each other a hand. You need a hand, you say, hey, Joe, give me a hand with this. Right. But you didn't ask what it is, how's it work, or who you're doing it for. You didn't ask questions. And we wouldn't even have thought of doing it. And I would highly resent it anyone questioned me, because you dealt strictly with your customer. That was it. And this made a nightmare for the CIA in later days, because I've been working with CIA now, the historians and whatever, for 15 years, and they classify all this. And because we didn't take notes. We have a medium, we didn't allow pencil and paper. Because you even made a doodle of Mickey Mouse on a piece of paper, it was top secret. And you had to process it and everything. So there was very few records kept. And that made it a nightmare for the historians later. Just exactly what all went on out there. And that's one reason for the Roadrunners website that you probably have seen, is that was a means of the CIA. They encouraged that to draw in the stories, what everybody did. And they reconstructed a lot of the legacy and history just from while the guys were still alive, getting their stories at reunions and that sort of thing. And then we wanted to go back to CIA headquarters and just go back there and just talk, go in their conference room and with the air branch and public affairs, anyone might have interest, and talk about the projects and stuff, and they take notes. And that's how they reconstructed a lot of what we did.
Yeah. Do you think during that time in Area 51 that they were using, because a lot, like they were obviously testing, and a lot of people would confuse these planes, the SR-71 and the A-12, as UFOs. Do you think that the government was using that as part of a disinformation campaign to propel, a different ideology, and obviously to protect their own tech? Was that even a conversation there too on the base?
No, this is an interesting thing. No one ever talked about UFOs at Area 51 until the Air Force took over in 1979. While the CIA had it, it's never a subject. It never came up. Now, we were aware of being UFOs. The U-2 flying 13 miles up, and it shined like a silver dollar at times if the light hit it just right. And it was a UFO, and we tried to hide it by painting it. And the weight of the paint cost us 1,500 feet of altitude, just the paint. So, wow. But the A-12, we flew 2,850 missions out of Area 51 with the A-12. And at 2,200 miles an hour, you cover a lot of territory in 4 to 6 hours. You just imagine you zip down Florida and back if you want to. And whatever you want to do. Right. But this was all done in secret. No one knew we were flying it, even our own Air Force, our own Navy. We tried to route our flights where we would go over least populated areas. So we left a pretty good sonic boom too. But if we did leave a sonic boom as we come back particularly into Nevada, the Navy at Fallon would take the blame for it, even though they didn't know what to take the blame for. But the Navy and our own Air Force did not know what we were doing out of Area 51. And we were flying this thing all over. In fact, when we went to Kadena, we went operational to fly over Vietnam with the A-12. And the reason was SR-71 wasn't ready. So we flew 26 missions over Vietnam and 9 over North Korea. And the Air Force guys started moving in with the SR-71, and that's the first time that they realized the CIA had a plane just like theirs sitting up in a hangar up the hill. And they weren't allowed to go up there. When they see it take off, they called us Brand X. Because they didn't know this, no one knew the CIA had it.
They had no idea.
The Air Force came in and they had one just like it sit down on, except they had two-seater, and they looked up there and saw this. They had no idea that the CIA had been flying that thing all this time.
Did NASA knew during that time as well? Because I believe from you were working with NASA, and before when you got hired, you were tracking the A-12. If I'm correct, you were
Yeah,
tracking the
yeah.
A-12, and then they hired you. I guess the other question too is, did they know about Area 51? Because there is a mention that the person that you did report to, because you were doing this on your own, and they then said, "Hey, we're just it's too high level." Do you think that's what propelled you then for the CIA to come talk to you to come work at Area 51? It was because of just tracking the A-12 yourself and being curious?
Actually, my involvement with the CIA and the Oshkosh program started while I was in the Army at Fort Bliss, Texas.
Okay.
I was a surface air missile guy, radar. I was very advanced into electronic countermeasures and countermeasures, the planes jamming and the missile being able to get through the jamming. And the CIA had detected the new radar. The Russians had a new radar. They picked up reflections off this radar. I mean, off this radar. It was tracking the ICBMs inside of Russia on their test range. They picked up these reflections, so they knew they had it, and they needed to know if this radar was going to be able to detect the A-12 that we were building. We hadn't even flown it yet.
Wow.
And the Russians moved one of them into Cuba. This is 1960, before the missile crisis, led up to the missile crisis. Well, CIA knew it was there, so they had a ghost plane flying out of Biggs Air Force Base next door to where I was stationed at Fort Bliss. And they had it full of antennas and whatever, and they'd fly take a run at Cuba, and they would turn this radar on. They were scared to death of us, that we was invading. And they turned it on, and then we were able to, the CIA was able to make it think there's tracking one plane, 10 planes, 20 planes coming, going. We spoof it. We were able to spoof the radar.
Wow.
So I participated on 2 of these flights, and my job was would make them launch their MiG-15s, and my job was to make the MiG-15s think we had a missile locked onto them, so they turn on their ECM. And then I could record it, and we could program our new Hawk missile that we were designing. That's how we got their ECM to program our new latest missiles. So I got to participate on 2 of those flights with the CIA. But once you get in with the CIA on something like that, you're never off their radar. So when I moved on to the NASA high range, I still had my security clearance. And they had what they called the Seven Sisters. It was 6 air defense radar sites in the region. And then the NASA site, which was 65 miles from Area 51, well, they knew that we would be picking up this plane, with radar. So the CIA would call the Seven Sisters, say, we got something that's going to be flying today. We monitor it, but do not mention it or record it. So we would actually track a lot of their missions. Just would never say anything about it. The FAA did the same thing. They would notify Los Angeles and Las Vegas and Reno, Salt Lake City, there's going to be a plane flying today above 60,000 feet. Do not report it and do not mention it. So they alerted everybody, there's going to be something flying today. And shut your eyes.
Wow. Now there's a perfect segue into shutting the eyes. I'm going to ask you about Bob Lazar, and I imagine a lot of people do. Do you believe Bob Lazar's story? And if so, why? And did you see anything else maybe mysterious or that you questioned when you were working on the base? But let's first start with Bob Lazar. Do you believe what Bob Lazar said about back engineering, ET technology?
Now, Bob Lazar was his flag as far as Area 51 is concerned. He was never out there. Anyone that's worked out there, it's just whether someone worked out there or not. First of all, we had a manifest. Anyone, you had to have a manifest. I don't care if you were a congressman. You couldn't go out there if you weren't on that manifest ahead of time. You had to be cleared. You had to have a security badge, be it visitors or a regular issued one. You reported into security. Security met everyone coming in that site. And Bob Lazar's name never showed up. And I'm the president of the Roadrunners International, which is all the boys that worked out there during that time. And that includes security guards, everything from 3-star generals down to the cooks. and no one ever heard of Bob Lazar. And, we've been meeting all these years, and everybody said, nah, he wasn't there. But he never showed up on any of the manifest or never showed up on security.
And he's such a well-known whistleblower within the UFO community. And there's a lot of different whistleblowers, and we're getting more and more as, since 2017, and we're seeing all this different UAP footage come out. What's your thoughts on whistleblowers? Like, are they doing us a service, or are they actually doing us a disservice within, the US military and also our craft in different technology? Do you think it's helping us? And do you think it's even needed?
That's a good question. We don't put much credence in whistleblower. However, it is a little bit concerning that all of a sudden you got people in Congress that is taking an interest in. We were quite disturbed when our own senator in this state released $22 million to supposedly house alien spacecraft. There's never been an alien spacecraft ever found, period. They started playing games with the money in Congress, and taxpayers hadn't paid for it. And that's all a big hoax, that part, as far as them claiming that, this Navy thing that they've been playing with. Nothing to it. That was mainly a guy wanting to beef up his resume for he was appearing on the History Channel. So he released a 15-year-old tape that no one had ever thought about it up until then. And it was something that's just routine. But yeah, you got people that claim to have been out there, and we've debunked them very easily.
Yeah. What's your thoughts then on the recent footage that's come out, like, from the Tic Tac, all of this footage that's come out since 2017? Do you think it's a UFO? You understand radar, you understand how planes fly. What's your thoughts on all the recent footage?
It's all, most of it based on a 15-year-old tape they were doing the same thing we did with the talking radar in Cuba. They were spoofing it. We've always done that. We did that Area 51. Every time we came out with a new system, you have to ask yourself, why is it only this one Navy system is seeing those? The Marines aren't seeing, the Army's not seeing, the Air Force not seeing, Russians not seeing, all your other countries, no one but this Navy, a couple of Navy carriers. What they were doing, all that was they were testing a new system routinely, and they put the tape away. They didn't even have any debriefs after it. They thought nothing of it until this guy released it 15 years later. He didn't release it to the media. He released it to entertainment company as part of it getting on the History Channel. And then I think the New York Times or someone got a wind of it, and all of a sudden, correct, it's a big, big deal. But no, that's nothing but it's just a system. They were analyzing this new system to see if it would, how it would react to this type of spoofing. It's electronic warfare is what it amounts to.
And is that what you think? Do you think it's foreign adversaries then, and not UFOs?
No. We got the capability of making radar or any system see just about anything we want it to see. And that's the reason we don't necessarily need stealth anymore. But we got technology to make the enemy see 15 carriers when there's maybe not any at all. We got that capability of, so you don't need stealth. I mean, you need it, but that's not we've gone way beyond stealth now. We can use the battlefield in so many ways it's unimaginable.
Right.
I mean, we put a whole task force of ships out in the sea as for the enemy. They're seeing a whole task force, and maybe there won't be anything but dolphins.
And right. And so what I'm hearing is so you're saying that you assume that it's not UFOs, and that it's probably it's either our tech or foreign adversaries from what we're seeing, because we have that ability to be able to do that.
Yes, and someone released it. I mean, we've done this for years. But that's one of the things we did at Area 51. I can talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
The talking radar, we determined it would be able to track the A-12 plane but by the time we got it built, and they would be able to, in time for them to shoot it down. So we never flew another plane over Russia, even though we built it for that reason. So we built our own Tall King radar. We built four different ones. We named one Ann, one was Susan. I forgot all their names. But we started copying the enemy's technology at Area 51. So if someone built a new module, say that this won't sell to the government, the Air Force, say Texas Instrument built a module, they're going B-52, that would do something, against China or whatever. Instead of having to test it over China, they just fly it over Area 51. We had the means there of duplicating what they would have seen if they'd flown over China. So we've always done that. Every system that's been built in the last 50 years is we've got the capability of simulating what the enemy's got. And we use it to make sure that our system works.
Right. My last question. Yes, it does make sense. My last question, because we're running out of time soon, is do you know anything about potentially an SR-72 coming out in the future?
I've seen the releases on that, and I'm very suspicious. Why would you don't normally release information like that. In my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, I think we've had SR-72 been flying for 15 years. We didn't retire the SR-71 without a replacement. I'm just saying this off the cuff,
right.
And it wouldn't be manned. It'd be an unmanned craft. You don't need to put men in them anymore. The only reason we put men in them 50 years ago was so we get money out of Congress. So we did the Apollo program. We were flying monkeys and dogs in the plane before we put the man in there. The only way we get money raised to go to the moon is we had to put a man in it instead of a dog or a monkey. And we had to put a window in it, and it just runs the cost up completely. But we didn't need the man in there to go to the moon. But that's the only way we raised the money.
That's fair enough. That's an awesome way to end. And TD, I want to say thank you for being rebelliously curious with me today. It was so great to speak with you.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Thank you.